So glad to be here today, and I want to start with some music because I think that's the best way to start any kind of gathering. Okay, the group you're about to hear is the group that I performed with at Harding University in Searcy, Arkansas, for my undergraduate. I was alto section leader, and we traveled extensively. This group was from a tour, and it was at a Church of Christ in Tennessee, just back in the spring, just before all the pandemic stuff hit. And actually our director, Dr. Gaines, who is a mentor and friend, recently retired. He retired during this time. So for me, this is starting you so you know where I come from, okay? All right, and then we'll get into the business after that.
As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, sisters, let's go down, come on down. Oh, sisters, let's go down in the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the robe and crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, brothers, let's go down, come on down. Come on, brothers, let's go down in the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, fathers, let's go down, come on down. Oh, fathers, let's go down in the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the robe and crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, mothers, let's go down, come on down, don't you want to go down? Come on, mothers, let's go down in the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, sinners, let's go down, come on down. Oh, sinners, let's go down in the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the robe and crown, good Lord, show me the way.
Okay, how does that make you feel? Tremendous. Okay, you guys talk to me for just a moment. Andrew, you're nodding your head.
Okay. No, it makes me feel, it's really nice just hearing everything come together, but the parts like kind of gradually flowing in.
Yeah, you're definitely hearing four-part harmony and even some extended harmonies in this as well. Yes?
When the bass came in, my heart just dropped.
I looked back at Casey and went, bass. Yeah, it really is. It's a sound I grew up with, okay? Hymn singing is just a part of my DNA, and I know it is for some of you as well. We're commanded to sing, and we're commanded to exhort one another and support one another in song. And that's kind of the basis of this whole sabbatical study thing, okay? And it's what I hope you get from it. Some of you are in the band and you heard kind of a start of this idea yesterday. Now on the band side of things, anything the band plays from this tradition is going to be round notes. It's going to be round notes because it's going to be arranging, you know, somebody arranged it or transcribed it or so forth. So it's a newer tradition to take some of these old tunes. But I will tell you, even Aaron Copland used these tunes, Zion's Walls. So it's a valid repertory of work, and I want to start with that in mind, okay? So what is shape note singing? What is shape note singing? If you look in these notebooks that you just got, you've probably got a smattering of a lot of different things, okay? I'm going to talk to you about a couple of traditions, and one I knew about starting out. When I looked into doing this sabbatical study, I talked to some dear friends of mine that are professors, and they've done sabbatical studies before. And I said, what is your number one advice that you would give to me? I'm looking for a topic, you know, anything you can tell me about actually researching this topic and so forth. And the number one thing every one of them I talked to said is pick something that is of interest to you, because you're going to spend a whole lot of time with it. And also, if it's of interest to you, it'll be interesting to those that you present the material to. So I'm hoping that's the case here, okay? Shape notes. Type of Western musical notation with note heads printed in distinct shapes to indicate their scale degree. Some people have called it buckwheat notes, okay? They just look odd on the page. I've had the experience here at Waynesburg in my theory classes when we start kind of analyzing hymns, because they're easy to find the chords in. When we start analyzing hymns, I'll pass out Amazing Grace, not thinking, oh my, I copied that out of my shape note hymnal. So it takes a minute. You know, I've had students look at that page and go, what is wrong with these notes? What is going on here, okay? So, music history, and this is in a nutshell, okay? Guido di Arezzo, 11th century monk, he assigned syllables to the hexachord, or the first 6 notes of what we would call our major scale. And he used ut, re, mi, fa, sol, and la, okay? Not worrying about T or C or whatever happens in that 7th step, okay? Then in the 16th century, we go through centuries singing these kinds of notes, okay? In the 16th century in England and bringing it over to the colonies, okay, in North America, they moved to a 4-syllable system, okay? Mi, fa, sol, la. Okay, and I'll show you this scale in just a minute. So I only have to deal with 4 notes, okay? Guess which one is going to be odd man out? Mi. It's the one that's going to wind up in that 7th position with the 4-syllable thing, okay? Now what I'm going to give you guys is the 7-shape system, okay? Because it makes more sense to me, just like it made sense to a guy named William Walker. He took the sacred harp that his brother-in-law had written in 4 shapes, and he said, why would you only assign 4 shapes? If you had 7 children, you would not just name them 4 names. You would name them 7 names, 7 different names, unless you're, who is it, George Foreman, that has all of his sons are George, okay? So that was his contention, is let's go to this 7-note system, okay? So we're going to stick with the 7-note system. Up here, I have kind of, I don't know, I don't do well without a show and tell. So there's show and tell up here afterwards, and y'all can take turns kind of looking at some things. But the early books of these are going to be in the 4-shape system. Miss C can tell you, she looked at them and said, what is up with all the fas and with all the, I don't know what this is. And for years and years, growing up in the 7-shape note system, I didn't know what it was either. So what a perfect time to find out, sabbatical time. So I took extensive looks. I did what I called the tour de South. And I started south through West Virginia, over to Kentucky, and down through Tennessee, Georgia, and so forth. It just kind of traveled down the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, okay, and landed in the South. So my study is going to kind of center on that because that's my heritage and that's my DNA, okay? All right, how are shape notes useful? Okay, I know Miss C uses solfege with you guys, okay? We're going to talk about a couple of different systems that the world works on in just a minute, okay? How are they helpful? Well, first of all, I think like your solfeggio symbols, which 7 shapes is exactly that, okay? Shape notes help make sight singing easier. If you know what note of the chord, what note of the scale you are on, and you also know how the chord works, you know what to do with that note, okay? Also, you have to talk about the different voice parts, and we'll get to that in a minute. In Britain, there are 2 names that show up in all the documentation, Sarah Anna Glover and John Kerwin. They had the tonic sol fa system that came over to the colonies, okay? In the colonies, John Connolly, who was a Philadelphia shopkeeper, bring it to Pennsylvania, okay? It was a center for this kind of singing. If you know anybody from the Mennonite tradition, they still use the 4 syllables, okay? The Easy Instructor in 1801, I know I'm going back a little ways here for all of these, but I want you to kind of get the foundation of it. William Little and William Smith wrote a book called The Easy Instructor, and it was for the teaching of singing, specifically for the teaching of singing, okay? And any of these books that you pick up, the first several pages are music theory, okay? It's really great stuff. Now, I brought a little bit of my DNA, and here in a minute we'll talk about this, but this is my grandfather's certification to be a singing teacher, okay? Rural Mississippi, okay? I can remember many a day, and Eddie, you'll remember similar kind of things as well. I can remember many a day that we would all be sitting on the back porch just about sundown, and my grandfather would say to my dad, "Give us a pitch." It didn't matter that it was not the pitch on the page, much to my husband's chagrin, because when he tries to sing with us, he goes, "That is not an E. I promise you that is not an E." So anyway, this is kind of a movable dough system and probably even more movable than you would want it to be sometimes. But my granddad would say that, and we would be often singing. And it was just a lovely time. I can remember many times sitting on the swing on the porch, and my grandmother was over shelling what we call butter beans. These guys know them as lima beans, but we call them butter beans in the South, because if you ain't got enough butter in it, they're no good, okay? So you got to have a lot of butter with them. But my grandmother would be shelling those butter beans, and suddenly she would start singing, just humming. Next thing you know, I'm coming in with alto. My uncle's coming in with the tenor, and my dad sings the bass, and all of a sudden, the whole family and people across the way, we say, across the way, were coming to their back porch, and pretty soon we were just having a hymn sing on the back porch, okay? And that's all it took for us. I think in recent days, hymn singing has kind of taken on it's gotten a hit. It's taken a hit. And I think the poetry of it is so important. And to know what those guys were thinking, I think it's really important for all of us. And that's kind of why I wanted to do this study and bring this to you, okay? All right. Early 1800s, there were over 200 different shape note tune books, and that's what they call these, different tune books. I purchased 5 of them that were a little different, just so you can see the difference in all of these, okay? There are a bunch of different types. What are normal schools? Well, like I told you, my grandfather went to Morris Normal Musical Institute in, I think that's 1921, September 1921, Okay, that's when he graduated from the normal school. Between the American Revolution and the Civil War, Lowell Mason, have y'all heard of Lowell Mason?
Absolutely.
In Boston, known as the father of music education in America, okay? And he was a scholar. He was a scholar. He and others that were kind of watching the trends and that kind of thing in the urban areas shifted to a seven-shape system, and that was more in keeping with European traditions. After the Civil War, singing schools and shape notes became increasingly identified with the South, and it kind of started dying off in the North. Okay? Many people switched from 4 to 7 shapes in keeping with the new teaching methods that they were learning in these normal schools. Leading teachers established these normal schools for the training of teachers, specifically for the training of teachers. So if you go over here to Hannah Hall, the history in that building is normal school history. Okay? Everybody see the connections there. Southern firms like Rubish Kiefer and A.J. Showalter began to publish small collections of music. My grandfather was a Showalter student. Anything Showalter said was golden in his book, and he was good to learn from him. What is the Sacred Harp? Well, this is the tradition I didn't know anything about. The Sacred Harp was written in 1844. B.F. White was its author, although there was a committee that kind of put this thing together. Now, I already mentioned William Walker, his brother-in-law. So B.F. down in Georgia says, let's take this book and get it published. So he carries it up to Philadelphia, and he hears all this new stuff about 7 shapes and the Aiken system that we're about to talk about in just a minute. Okay? And somehow the publisher just forgot to put B.F. White's name on that book. Okay? And that book became The Southern Harmony by William Walker. Uh-oh. We've got a family problem here, a family squabble here. Because he and B.F. White and William Walker did not agree on which of these should we use, which of these systems should we use. Okay, so there was a little bit of a deal there. So the Sacred Harp was supported by county and regional conventions in a number of southern states. Like if I want to go to South Carolina, they're going to tell me, we use the New Harp of Columbia. So if you go to a singing in South Carolina, you got to have this book, not the Sacred Harp. You got to have this book. They might say, we use the original Sacred Harp, the Denson revision. Okay? I got to tell you, on my tour to South, I went to, Georgia. What's the little town? It was a little tiny town where the Sacred Harp is published. And I met members of the Denson family. They're still using this book. They're still using this book. Okay? So it was really kind of interesting. And I went to the Sacred Harp Museum and Publishing Company, which looked like somebody's grandmother's house. Okay? And it had a whole bedroom dedicated to all things Sacred Harp and all things shape notes, 4 shapes. Okay? Really interesting. And the curator there was actually an art professor from the area college in that area. So we sat and talked to him. He said, I just like the way it looks on the page. And we sing every week, we use this book. So he was really informative. In these Fa Sol La books, they have strophic hymns. Do y'all know the word strophic? Okay, I know the music majors should know it. Strophic means same music, different lyrics. So it's hymn sing. If you look at hymns, the way they have different verses to the same music, and then they have a refrain or a chorus, that's a strophic hymn. Okay, odes and anthems, and you have some examples of the hymns and the anthems from Sacred Harp. And I'm so excited for the semester. Miss C picked some really good tunes for you guys to learn out of an extensive list that I sent her. So she's done a lot of listening in this as well. All right, other early tune book survivals include the Southern Harmony, which was in Western Kentucky, Harmonia Sacra, which is in Virginia, the New Harp of Columbia, which is East Tennessee, my neck of the woods, and the Christian Harmony, which is in several states in the South, okay? The Christian Harmony uses 7 shapes. So it's kind of a new thing. This is the 2010 edition, so you can see it's fairly current, okay? This Sacred Harp that I got down in Georgia is a 1991 edition, and that is the newest Sacred Harp that's out there. What is gospel music? You guys have heard the term gospel music. Now, in the world of shape notes, let me qualify it. In the world of shape notes, this is gospel music, okay? They come in upright songbooks like this, okay? My grandfather had, I've got 2 shelves full of these books. And they're just so portable, you know? They're just easy to pass around. They're paperback, some of them, most of them. And they've got all these old hymns you've heard of, I'm sure, okay? So they started replacing these. Imagine, turn to number 400 and now you're going to sing, okay? Now we've got, you want to sing I'll Fly Away? There it is, right there. I'll Fly Away. Besides, everybody who uses these books knows I'll Fly Away. Anyhow, Gabriel, okay? All right. After 1900, there were mass market publishers such as James D. Vaughan, V.O. Stamps, and J.R. Baxter. A lot of the hymn books I learned from are Stamps Baxter songs. That's what they're called, Stamps Baxter songs. They kind of merged their publishing company. These are fun for me to sing, but they are definitely commercial in their, at least how you guys have heard them. I'll Fly Away, you probably heard on some kind of hootenanny something or other, I don't know. Eddie, you and I used it in Cotton Patch Gospel, didn't we? I'll Fly Away. So it works in that kind of setting, okay? They had what they called singing conventions. Now, we're talking about after 1900 here. So the term gospel music started being used in that world, okay? Now, gospels and spirituals are kind of linked. They're kind of linked, okay? And that's all I'm going to say about that right now until we get into some of those, okay? These were often accompanied by the piano, and male quartets were all the rage. They had the matching suits. They did the choreography. They were often really funny. It's great music, and it's big, big fun, okay? And they all have a gospel message to them, okay? I'll fly away. Some glad morning when this life is o'er, I'll fly away. I mean, there's not a better message than that anywhere, okay? Now, I don't know how well this shows up. Same tune, New Britain CM. This is from the Baptist Harmony, 3 parts. And you notice all the verses are down under. Okay? So you got verse 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 verses. So this is the way the oblong books, this is the way the strophic hymns would show up. Okay? What I love about this is from the Denson publication off of the Sacred Harp. 4 parts, so the alto has been added. We'll talk about the voicing in just a minute. And then there's a little history where this thing came from. Boy, for a historian, this was great for me. I was like, oh, it's part of the oldie hymns. I didn't know that, okay? So this was really great information. But it's the same melody. Now, Holy Manna. This is the first one that I gave you guys, okay? Now, what you have is the 7-shape version. It was originally 4 shapes. But I didn't want to have us mess with fa, sol, la, mi, fa. I don't know about you, but that's stretching me a little too far, okay? But notice some things. It's pretty clean looking up here on the page, but the verse, let's see, you said I could point with this thing. Ah, here we go. Wait. Technology. Okay. The melody is right here in the tenors. Tenor gets the lead. Tenor gets the lead. How about that, Dave? That's okay, isn't it? And if you notice, they don't have any slurs. If the eighth notes are barred together, it goes on the same syllable. So why do you need slurs? Okay? The simpler the better was the thinking for the publishers. Plus, publishing wasn't all it is now during these days. Okay, so here we go. Fa, sol, la, mi, fa. I told Miss C it's just too many fa's for me. I just can't keep up, okay? And if you notice, let's see, wait. If you notice, the flag on fa is also the flag on this fa, is also the flag on this fa. It would be hard for me to tell, am I on 1, 4, or 8? Where am I in this mix, okay? But if I have do, fa, do, it's a little easier to tell where I'm at. And besides, to me doesn't belong up here. Okay? Me doesn't belong up here. Camilo Yargi and I have talked about this a lot because in Spanish-speaking countries, they use C in that place. So when I said, I was answering him, yes, C, and he went, B? And I went, what? And he said, B? Because in a fixed dose system that he grew up in, that's B. Okay? So it helps to know what you're looking at on the page. Now, they started some experimentation with 7 shapes. So they hadn't landed on what worked yet. The New Harp of Columbia, look at do in the New Harp of Columbia. I don't know if you would call that an hourglass, but that's do. There's 7 shapes, all right, but they are some odd shapes. Look at Ray. Looks like a popsicle or something. I don't know what that is. Okay? And then the triangle is on top, like the stem is right in the middle of the note, also on do, stem right in the middle of the note. So it looks a little odd to our eye. Okay? Jesse Aiken, thank goodness for Jesse Aiken, okay? William Walker goes to Philadelphia, he meets Jesse Aiken. Jesse Aiken has come up with a system that Walker says, oh, that's great, I want that in my hymnal, okay? And so we get the first 7 shapes that make sense to me, okay? William Walker adopted it in Southern Harmony, so you get a triangle for do, a half moon for Ray, a diamond shape for me, a flag for fa, so that stays the same. Sol, that makes sense. Tonic dominant, sol, good round note, yeah. And Miss C can tell you also from pneumatic writing back in medieval times that sol is an important note, okay? La is a rectangle. I don't know what I call T. I used to call it when I was little the ice cream cone. Kind of what it looks like to me. And so I'm sitting on my grandfather's knee at age 3 singing from a hymn book, and I know how far do is from fa, and I know how far do is from sol. And I'm singing harmony at age 3, not even knowing it was hard. I just didn't know it was hard, okay? So this system works really well. I know it looks like Greek to a lot of people, but I think where hymn singing is concerned, what are the number 1 things you want a hymn to do? Well, just tell me, if you're composing a hymn, Allegra, if you're composing a hymn, what do you want to happen in this hymn? What do you want to be the foundation of this hymn?
Like theory-wise?
No, I mean just in general, just in general.
I would say I want it to
Yeah, I want it to be really comfortable and easy to sing, easily accessible, right? I think that's, bottom line, that is my foundational thought, okay? The easier you can make this singing, the better, okay? My theory students will tell you that when they write their first melody, they try to do some jumping around craziness, and I'm like, no, 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 no. Give me something that is easy to sing, okay? Because if you can sing it, we know we can play it, not quite so much jumping around and everything. So I think you're exactly right, Allegra, exactly right. Okay, so the movable do then comes out of this, okay? Do is always tonic in the 7-shape system. Okay, so if you are in the key of C, C is do, okay? C is do. D is re, etc. Okay? If you are in a fixed do system, C is always do. So now my conducting students are going, yeah, she's going to make us sing in the key of re. She is. She's going to make us do that. Okay? All right. Because I think it's good to know all these systems. Okay? If you're looking at a score for orchestra, fixed do works really well. Okay? Fixed do works really well. If you're trying to sing a alto sax part in a band score, fixed do works better because do is do is do is do, okay? But these 7-shape systems, Allegra, make it easy for everybody to come because if they can find the triangle, they can find do. They don't have to know it's the key of E flat. Does that make sense? They don't have to know that. In fact, I tried to teach my dad how to read round notes, and he said, you round noters need to just keep it over there. Because I can't, it's too hard. I don't need to worry about flats. I don't need to worry about sharps. I don't want to know what a slur does. I just, right? Okay, this made it easy. The movable do allows concentration on the intervals without necessarily worrying about the key signatures. Okay? It is shorthand. It's musical shorthand. Okay, so here's the voice parts. I've already told you. The tenor gets the melody, okay? Now here's what's weird about it. They started out with a treble, a tenor, and a bass. A treble, a tenor, and a bass. So the treble was an upper harmony, but it could be sung by men and women. The tenor was the melody. It could be sung by men and women. The alto was added, well, the bass was added next, okay? So the bass, men with lower voices, and I'm with you, Gabe. As soon as the bass came in a few minutes ago, I was like, oh, that's good. And then the alto is sung by women with lower voices, okay? So basically, you kind of have 6-part harmony, don't you? Think about that. Now they sit in, if you're going to a Sacred Harp singing, and just a little side note, the president asked me before last fall happened, he said, or actually he asked Jim, he said, is this a good semester to go on sabbatical? And Jim gave my answer, which is, it's either going to be the best semester or the worst semester to go on sabbatical. I wasn't sure which it was going to end up being. The thing that it did take away from me is I couldn't go to any singings. So that was a little bit of a problem for me. But I've seen enough videos that I know what they are like, and I'm going to show you a video in just a second. They sit in what they call the hollow square, facing each other. And the conductor sits in the middle, and everybody conducts. Everybody gets the motion going with their arms, okay? So this is the Second Ireland Sacred Harp Convention in 2012, and they're singing Holy Manna. And you have this in your folders. If you want to look, you can. But I want you to see what they do. It's boisterous. Hang on. People are just wandering around. And stop sometime. What do you think, Carisha? You're clapping back there.
That was amazing.
What do you think about it? Tell me what you noticed.
Well, I noticed that suddenly some of the people were directed by hands in the middle.
Yes.
And some people were coming in and also started doing the hand motion as well.
Yes. And they're kind of handling these oblong books. And if you notice, some of them have bindings that are cracked and everything. They've used them for hundreds of years. I mean, it's amazing. These things are like family Bibles. They pass them down in their families, so it's well thought of. What did you notice at first? Did they start with lyrics? What did they start with? Solfege. Yeah, they started with solfege. So in my arrangement, I tried to stay fairly true to this in that when you're just singing a harmony note, you're singing the syllable. Okay, so when you see that pop up in the arrangement, don't freak out, okay? Holy Manna is the one that they start every singing with. It's the song I thought, if we're going to start somewhere, we might as well start with the one they start with, okay? So I will tell you now, I can't get this melody out of my mind. It kind of gets it like an earworm, it gets in there, you can't get rid of it. What I did on top of that is try to take the text, the lyrics, and set them in a way that speaks the lyrics. Okay, so that was my point in that the arrangement that I'm giving you that y'all will start on pretty soon, I think. If you notice, the first verse is about brethren gathering all together. So I started with the tenor, and then I had the bass come in, okay? Just on harmony notes. And then I had the ladies come in with the melody on Sisters, We All Gathered Together. I can't remember the text. But I had the women singing the melody and the men doing some harmony notes, okay? Then if you notice, the next, we took the ladies, I think I did elongated the melody. So instead of bum, ba-da-dum, bum, bum, ba-da-dee, da, da. And the men are doing some counterpoint things, okay? There's a verse about trembling and being in fear and not sure. Well, I went to a relative minor in that, so that makes sense. And I did it in staggered entrances. So it makes it sound kind of, I don't know, nervous or worried or something, okay? But I can imagine it being sung in the chapel upstairs with just resonance all over the place. I mean, I just think that would be kind of cool. And then at the end, I kind of just brought it home like Sacred Harp singers would sing it. The last two verses I do in quick tempo, and then the last verse I do in quick tempo up a step. So if you need to know kind of how I put the thing together, that's how I put the thing together. Some that we're going to be addressing are going to be what I call straight hymns. Okay, you're just going to pretty well get it straight out of the book. Okay, there's one that's called "Now the Day Is Over," that I think also works with the prayer, "God be with you till we meet again." And I put those together in a kind of medley fashion, but it's pretty close to what you'd see in a hymn book. Okay, so that's kind of my idea behind our project. Miss C, I got to thank you, and I thank you guys for lending your voices to this project. We're going to deal with a lot of different sacred ways to express ourselves, I guess, is the best way to say it. Okay, so the seven-shape tradition today. This is straight out of my first hymnal that I can still tell you on Jordan Stormy Banks is page 181. Okay, and there are two other versions of On Jordan Stormy Banks at 182 and 183. I pretty well know what's in this book because I was raised on this book. It's just called Great Songs of the Church. Now, Where I Worship uses the Songs of Faith and Praise, but they're still in shape notes. I got a chance to go to my alma mater. Look at this book. That looks familiar, doesn't it? I mean, this is more praise songs, praise and worship songs, praise, that kind of thing. Guess what? Shape notes. I can't get away from them. Every one of these I pick up has shape notes in it, it seems like. But it's easy, and I love the front of this book has there's a CD I didn't bring it. There's a CD that goes with it that actually tells you how to sing and how to read shape notes. So it's kind of a teaching tool as well. But that's modern. That came out like 2 years ago. There's a whole series of them, 12 volumes or something like that. So it's kind of interesting. But the seven-shape tradition, many congregations still use the seven shapes. Kind of bringing it forward, my grandfather, my mom's father, was a preacher. And he wanted to go to Cane Ridge. So I thought, I'll do a pilgrimage to Cane Ridge, Kentucky. And I went to a meeting house. I'll show you some pictures later. It's just an old log cabin. They had a series of revivals. You guys have heard that word before? Yeah, revivals. Where everybody in the countryside all around was invited. All these rural areas were invited. They expected maybe a few hundred people to show up, okay? The speaker was Alexander Stone, and Stone was known as a very dynamic speaker, very dynamic preacher. This is right outside of Lexington, Kentucky. And they expected, like I said, some hundreds of people to show up. Guess how many people showed up to this singing and this preaching time?
12,000.
Yeah, 21,000 people showed up in the hills of Kentucky to sing and hear the word. So what they decided they had to do was, we got to, all you preachers take, 100 and go that way. You take 100 and go that way. And they were all within shouting distance of the meeting house. And I met with the curator there, and he said, I wish I had been there. He was a seminarian from Lexington. He said, I wish I had been there, because don't you know that singing was gorgeous, coming from all over the hillsides. And it was all this kind of singing, shape note, I will warn you, don't call this folk music to a sacred harper, because them's fighting words. Okay, this is not folk music. It is music of folk, okay, and a lot of it of country folk, okay. I do just love the simplicity and the humility of it, and I have come to love it, even though it looks a little Greek on the page to me as well. But this is the way I was raised. It's soprano and alto on top, tenor and bass on the bottom. And, this piece you guys know, right? This song, It Is Well With My Soul. You probably even know the history of it. But part of what we'll do this semester is learn the history behind some of these. If we sing a Fannie J. Crosby song and you don't know about Fannie J. Crosby, you've missed part of the story. Okay? Identifying the do or la for songs in minor keys is very easy. So if do is do in major keys, la is going to be your tonic in minor keys. I think y'all use that too, don't you, Miss C? Yeah. Okay. Singing's commanded, like I said. We're commanded to sing and share with each other and exhort each other and comfort each other. And I think that's what hymns do. Some hymns are straight from the Word, straight from the Bible. Some hymns are not, they're biblical thoughts. But Eddie and I have talked about this. It's so much a part of our DNA that you pretty much carry the Bible and you carry your songbook. Then that's the way I was raised, right, Eddie? Yeah, I come to the garden alone. I mean, there's just some hymns that it's just a part of my family. The theory and the poetry. Allegra, we could talk about theory. Honestly, the theory's not hard in these, and that's why I use them with my theory class, because you can come to it and start analyzing pretty fast. Casey's got a whole project going where he's just pulling a hymn a week out, and he sends me the theory behind it. All right. The poetry, though. The poetry. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well. It is well with my soul. And the man that wrote those words had just lost his whole family at sea. How do you write, it is well with my soul? There's got to be a strength there, right? There has to be something that you lean on. And that's so human. You need a something to lean on. And he had found his thing to lean on in the worst of everything. All right. I hope you enjoy the semester. I'm looking forward to the next few weeks. If for no other reason than it keeps me, y'all, the fall was just joyous for me. I know y'all were back here just slugging it out, and I'm going to do it with you this semester. I know, I get it. I totally get it. But anytime you can go back to your roots and figure out, okay, now I understand myself, and you take time to do that, it's a good thing. It's a really good thing. So I'm hoping you get the excitement that I have about this and what these things mean to me. The other day in conducting class, we all just said the words to Amazing Grace. We just said the words out loud to Amazing Grace. And there are 4 people in the class, and I said it, and there were 5 different interpretations of those words. We just said them just a little bit different, didn't we, Diamond? Just a little bit different. Every time we said it, it was a different thing. It was a different thing. Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. If you can sing it that way, how much more are you going to exhort those that are around you and support those that are around you, and they you? That's what hymn singing is. That's what congregational singing is and should be, So I just want to leave you with that today, okay? And we'll talk again a little bit more. We'll get in a little bit of the theory of it and what's going on, but what I'm going to try to do is kind of get rid of a lot of the filigree and give you the 7 shapes. When we import them into Smart Music, they go to round notes anyway, okay? But you'll have your shape notes to look at, okay? And we should find a way to post this maybe in Canvas or something so they can go back and say, oh, the diamond is dough and that kind of thing. I don't want this to get in your way. But if it's a tool that helps you get to it, then yay. How many of you think if you look on a page in a hymnal, you know what key the piece is in? You know what key the hymn is in? Raise your hand if you think you do. Okay, so we've got a lot of people that don't understand keys, okay? So this might be a way for you to look at it, get into it. I think hymns are a really good way to get into theory because, like I said, I think they're so accessible, okay? Questions. You guys might have some questions. Casey.
What was your favorite part? I know you talked about quite a lot of things, but just in your opinion, what did you enjoy the most in
The number one, I'm kind of a history nerd, so the number one was I wanted to get into what are these people thinking. But here's the best part, guys, from a sabbatical. When you go to a special collections in a library, you walk in, and of course I walked in with my mask and had sanitized and all that stuff. And they brought out, I had contacted them ahead of time, I had a schedule to keep and all of that, okay? I walked in, they pulled a cart full of books and videos and recordings and all kinds of stuff, and they set it beside me and they said, this is your workspace. And it was me in the space, and they handed me a pair of white gloves because I'm going to be touching books from the 1700s and things like that. And you have to sign on the dotted line that you will not destroy and or maim and or whatever these items. And I'm listed as a visiting scholar. So that was lovely. That part was lovely. That's just a side note on the personal part. But honestly, Casey, it's learning more hymns that I didn't know anything about, to tell you the truth. And learning the history behind some of these that I have known my whole life, but I didn't know. I just didn't know what some of these people had gone through in their lives. So that was just great, the humanness of it. Missy?
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
One is, do you have any recordings of your grandfather when he did this?
Oh, you know, I bet I don't. I may have some pictures of us sitting on the porch. You know, my dad's dad was a singing master in Southern Singing Schools. Baptist, primitive Baptist. So this sound is very primitive, isn't it? Okay, primitive Baptist in Mississippi. And my mom's dad was a preacher in Memphis, Tennessee, Church of Christ. And so I had both of those. Yeah, I had to behave in the pews. I had to behave myself. Carisha.
So, like, growing up when you were younger, what was like one of the hardest songs you had to memorize?
Can I tell you, there's a Spanish hymn called Flee as a Bird to Its Mountain. Flee as a bird. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And when I went to Harding University to audition to be in their chorus, I decided I was going to sing that hymn. I don't think I'd ever sung a minor key hymn in my life, and that's the one I picked. And I don't know why I just remembered that, but I just remember that. The ones that are from the Seven Shape tradition actually made me want to be in a choir, okay, because I'd done all this family singing and congregational singing and all that. So I joined my first chorus I was in was in 7th grade, junior high. And then in 8th grade, they started a band, and all my friends were going, oh, let's join the band, let's learn how to play. And I said, oh, y'all, it's so much time, and I can't believe y'all are doing the band thing. It's kind of crazy. And I'll tell you a sidelight, they hired a really good-looking trumpet teacher. And then I found myself, after school, all my friends were at band rehearsal. I guess I'll join the band. And I guess I'll play trumpet. So that's how I started, Krisha. It's not, I mean, honestly, there's nothing lovely about that, except I think it's a funny story. And I'll tell you also how I picked French horn is I looked in the World Book Encyclopedia, which you guys don't even know what that is. But I looked under musical instruments and I said, isn't that a pretty instrument? And that's how I picked the French horn. I'm pretty common, okay? I'm just pretty common, so. And Missy, did you have another question?
Yeah, I was curious how they picked the parts. If they told people, okay, you guys are going to do this, or if you got to pick your own. If you said, well, I'm an alto, just because I said so.
You know, I think for years and years, like Missy tells me I'm not an alto really, I'm a mezzo. But I think for years and years, because I could sing harmony, I just got thrown on the alto. Jim can tell you I sing tenor sometimes when I get bored of all the E's and D's. Diamond and I've had this discussion. altos get to sing a lot of E's and D's, okay? It's just E's, D's, and F's. We just kind of stay right there, you know, nothing fancy. We're kind of floating through the harmony, right? Okay. But because I could sing harmony, I think that's why I landed on alto all the time. Jim can tell you that I jump down to tenor sometimes. I've even sung bass an octave higher to teach him the bass part. My dad is so funny because sometimes we'll be singing a hymn and he starts like singing Chinese. At least the people in front of him think, what is going on? And he's singing the solfege to learn the part. Like if it's a hymn he doesn't know, he just sings the solfege just like these guys do in the first verse. But what these guys do, the sacred harpers do, is they say, let's sing let's sing the notes. And that's what they sing, all the solfege. And then they'll say, okay, let's sing the lyrics. Let's sing the words. They don't use the word lyrics, that's too fancy. Let's sing the words. So they sing the notes and then they sing the words. And that's the way they do each one of these. Okay? It's really a great tradition. And it's so homespun that to me it's beautiful. One of my favorite melodies is Simple Gifts. So simple, so primitive, but it's lasted hundreds and hundreds of years, just like Amazing Grace. On Thursday, I'll share a few videos with you that I think will just kind of open your thinking up, but I just wanted to get you started. Anyway. Hope that answered your questions. We're probably way out of time. Oh, no, we're getting close. Anything else, you guys? Are you ready to do this thing? I think we're going to learn a lot. There are some words that show up in these hymns that you may not know what they are. Here I raise my Ebenezer. What in the world? What is that? You know? So there'll be a little bit of what is that and why do we need to be talking about that? Okay. I read an article recently that said the Old Testament is dying. That was the title. Scared me to death. I didn't want to read it. I was just like, okay. But to me, a worship service without hymns is the Old Testament without the Psalms. You gotta preach the word in no better way in my mind than singing it. I mean, you might as well go with a song in your heart, right? Yeah. So for me, that's what it means. And I've gotten, you know, some of you that are on the worship team, I've gotten really very vocal about how important hymns are to me, and I just think they really are. I just think they're super important. And like I said, my tradition is more a cappella singing. We even sang things like Holy Radiant Light without instruments. I mean, we just sang everything a cappella. In fact, one of the videos I'm going to show you on Thursday is the faculty of Harding University singing to the graduates, "The Lord bless you and keep you," with the sevenfold Amen, which we learned from shape notes. But that's why Miss C, when you picked that for the thing we wind up our concerts with, I just went, okay, good. That's great. Because it really means a lot to me. Yeah, songs like that, I think, Carisha, if you were asking the hardest song, it's not the hardest song. We sing the Hallelujah Chorus a cappella in worship service. So these guys, when I went to Harding University, I walked in, they built a new auditorium, seats 4,000. We all had to go every day. It was chapel every day. Y'all think you got it hard, you know. Nobody even takes roll. I mean, when they talked about at Harding, the roll being called up yonder, it was how many times did you have absences for chapel? You weren't going to get your crown if you had too many absences for chapel. And I walked in, and 4,000 kids who had been raised singing shape notes started singing. Now, if that doesn't transport you somewhere, you need to take your pulse. That's all I'm saying. You need to look, because there's some kind of flatlining going on there some way. And I've sent Miss C just videos. Oh, this is Chapel from, from Harding. It's near and dear to my heart. But I just think it's, if you don't get into the poetry of it, you're going to miss it. Because the music's not hard. And the music is kind of fun when you don't have to sing all D's and E's, right? Yeah, the music is fun as well and beautiful. The music that Miss C picked out that's in, and you're going to be getting more, but those hymns, I hope by the end of our time with those hymns, they mean something special to you. That's what I'm hoping. That would be a win. All right, Miss C, that was it.